Okay, I call this Grant County Council meeting to order. We will begin with a moment of silence. So join with me. Thank you. And Terry, would you mind leading us in our pledge? Do it.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you.
All right, number 3, review and adoption of the agenda. And we would like to move it around a little bit so Cole can be here when we vote on some things. So someone will make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
6E and 6F. We want to move those to 6A and D, and then move the remaining on 6 on down. That makes sense. So we're moving 6E and 6F to 6A and D, and then everything else just shuffles down.
Okay. And I'll amend your motion to
I'll amend my motion to adopt the agenda as it is stated.
okay. All in favor? And am I calling the roll call or? Okay, all in favor? We'll start with you.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes. Ben?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, approval of minutes. We have our June 29th, 2020 regular meeting minutes and our July 16th, 2020 special meeting minutes. So look over those and make a motion when you're ready.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes. This Ben.
Okay. All in favor?
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
Okay. Public comment. Do we have any?
Zero. What do you do?
Okay. All right, no public comment. All right, we will go to 6, old business, and we will drop down to 6C, consider approval of contract for a recreation master plan.
Yes, so go to item 6C, this is the agreement between the town of Hildebrand and the Western Piedmont Council of Governments for Aaron Shoddy, the planner with the program specialist that visited us last month. This is the agreement to allow her to do the recreation management and everything that entails. So we need a motion and a vote by council.
This is my call. Make a motion to approve.
Okay, any discussion on this? All right, hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right. 6D, discussion regarding park maintenance contracts and maintenance positions. And Logan, you have information on that. It's in your agenda, or in your packet, I should say.
Yes, and this is gonna be a pretty lengthy introduction to the topic. There's a lot of variables in it that can swing either way. But anyway, so looking at it, last month we were asked to review a full-time maintenance position in terms of cost to several contracts, the 2 part-time positions we have in the budget now. If you look at the attachment I handed out to you at your table, the first page of that. So we have part-time position 1 at $13,700, part-time position 2 at $13,700 as well. Quarterly cleaning contract at $3,200, part A maintenance contract, that's at $12,390. Part B, park maintenance contract, that one's been adjusted down from 6,000 and changed on 2160. Park C maintenance contract 5,000. The weekend cleaning contract 3,900, and then the bank clearing at the park, which is 6,400. That total comes out to 60,450. The cost of a full-time person with benefits payroll. Now, before I dive into all the variables, we are looking at saving somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 8,000 ish. It's hard to account for exactly how you're going to get to 4 to 8. But the first thing I want to talk about is the time. So, and how this position will look. The full-time person would be responsible for all the current maintenance positions duties, in addition to weed eating, mowing, spraying the park grounds, cleaning the park restrooms, leaf blowing all the equipment areas, and leaf blowing the pavilion. This, in my opinion, is achievable with the list of duties that are already there. However, there are some duties that come along in some months that will probably take hours away from some of the other facilities. So right now, we do have 40 hours a week with Mark addressing the facilities in the summer. The one comparison I've made is this position most likely will take on the park very heavily in the summer. So a lot of those extra things will get done in the summer. That's going to have to be moved to the fall, spring, winter months. In addition to that, eating into their time over the summer, we currently have the parks contractor aerate the park grounds once in the spring. They fluff the mulch once in the spring, and then they perform 2 bulk leaf removals twice in the fall. So just to kind of clarify and make it clear, during these weeks, it should be expected that the additional time may impact other areas of performance, such as the other 5 facilities we got. Some of the items that are going to be difficult to decipher are going to be gas costs, oil, maintenance, sprayers, the chemicals, paying for the licensure. Some of that's going to be just upfront costs the first year we do it. The other thing is purchasing a mower. So we did just sell our 2 mowers. However, the sale of those 2 mowers, we got roughly $3,600. The cost of a new mower is going to be somewhere between $27,000 and $34,000. So we can't use that money to pay for the new mower, but it would use that revenue that we got from the sale. Beyond that, going back to the first page here, I kind of want to explain away some of these items. I think one of the reasons we're looking at possibly doing this is our disc golf course is only mowed twice a month right now. We've had a few comments that the grass there gets a little high during the second week, that it's not mowed each month. So if you look at Part C, park maintenance contract, that's currently at $5,000. That's what covers our twice a month mowings between March and June. Well, it's actually March and August, I think, March through August. Do is you would want to double that essentially, because if we're looking at apples to apples, then that $5,000 number really needs to look more like 10. Just because if you're going to ask the full-time person to do it every week for a money comparison, that's what it would cost us under this contract. However, you might, one of the things we were talking about is we might be able to address the bank clearing. So this may be something we can take on our budget altogether going forward, or it may be something that we can considerably reduce, which again would fluctuate these numbers somewhat. One of the things I've not talked about is sign replacement. So we spend currently $75 each time we put up a sign. So a street sign, the green 911 street level signs, we spend about $75 putting one of those up. We spend about $125 if we have to install a new post, a replacement post, and a sign. To me, those numbers will range anywhere between $500 and $2,000 a year, depending on how many gets damaged, knocked over, or stolen. So again, it's very hard to account for those numbers when looking at it. But again, the two major advantages, kind of to summarize it, one, you're gonna get your disc golf course mowed weekly, with a full-time person, and then you're gonna have the sign installation costs covered. However, the setbacks are, you're gonna have to purchase some of the equipment up front, and you're also gonna have the monthly ongoing costs of gas, oil, and then maintenance on the equipment. One small thing, and I wouldn't use this as any type of tiebreaker in your mind about how to look at it, but it is a very small benefit to having a full-time person look at the park, is we are talking about the Part F grant. If we move from a contracted position slash part-time person who addresses the park, if you move that to a full-time position, you actually go from 4 points in the Part F grant for that category to 8. So it does give you about a 4-point bump. But again, that's such a small, it's something to know, but it's not something that I would overweight. So anyway, what we would need to do is, council wants to have a discussion on it. If you do choose to do this, you would need to make a budget amendment. The other things to remember are, we do have a 6-month clause with our current contractor. So we would have to give them at least 6 months notice that we're canceling the contract. What that would ultimately look like is we could hire someone and have them start around January 1 of next year. That would give them roughly 3 months to get any type of licensure under their belts and familiarize themselves with the town before next spring. But the other part to that is, if we did choose to go that route, you've got a $31,000 salary listed on this front page. I would recommend starting that at 29 or 30, and then incentivizing the license. Once they get the license, then you bump whatever that original number is up to 31. That way you incentivize it and encourage them to make sure they get it. But anyway, now it's up to council discussion.
Oh, we're on 6C. No, 6D, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any comment on going to a full-time person?
I think we need to do it. I think so too. Got a lot of stuff that may get done, don't hear of. Exactly. I will give you this, I went up the other day to the park before the trees blowed over. I don't know if you got a report from Griffin's or not, about the door standing open, our backpack door sitting right in there, nobody know where to be found. And I sat there, because I knew Griffin's would be coming through, and I sat there, they got there, and they locked the door. I think something needs to be done.
It was like midweek last week.
Yeah, I forget what day it is, one day, I forget what day it was, but, I should have wrote the dates down, but I said, I said, do I need to call? He says, oh, well, no, I'm doing a full report. So that's the reason I didn't call you, because he said he was turning one in.
Yeah, they let us know, so I didn't get that date from council.
But, yeah, it was just standing open. The screen, I guess that screen in there up on the wall was for the, surveillance camera or whatever, I don't know. So I sat there, the Griffin's out there, he locked it up, and I left.
I guess.
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer as far as going to a full-time maintenance man.
Monitoring and watching whoever's doing it, and notice it be himself, so.
I think at the end of the day too, posting for a full-time position, you're gonna have more people to apply for that versus part-time. That's one of the considerations we looked at, even doing a town manager. So I think you're casting a wider net to find the right person. Whereas I think if you look for a part-time person, you're really limiting yourself. So I'm not opposed to it.
We'd have enough time to, next 5 or 6 months to start looking for the right person, correct?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could, I would start the search process probably in August. That gives you enough time to get it in by January. That is one thing, is just to explain that it might be difficult. I don't want to say for sure, but just kind of keep this as, I would get an expectation in your mind that there's definitely someone out there willing to do this. I'm not saying there's not, but just kind of keep in mind that, I don't know how often you find the same type of person that's willing to change toilet paper, but also have chemical licenses for spraying and maintaining parks, just,
And it's hard hiring people right now too. That's, where we're at too. So that's gonna take a while to get that position.
yeah. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, and if we come back to you and there's non-qualified applicants, something along those lines, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but just,
It could happen.
because,
But you're gonna have a little bit of time to find the person, because you have to give him 6 months before we end his contract.
Well, hopefully the COVID stuff will be over with too. People will be looking for a job to get them free handout.
But you won't give that 6 month notice until after we get the right person. Or we,
well, what I would hope is that we can find the right person prior to the March, start date. So we would at least need to give a notice by October. So I would hope so. If not, that's something we'd have to look at that point. At least by the September meeting.
Well, someone may not be able to wait 6 months for that job, or may not be willing to. Right?
That's a good point.
Well, and that's, they can start the job, but the thing is, they will take over the park maintenance duties until that contract expires, or until we terminate it.
Okay.
So, but they would still be,
They'll have plenty to do,
At the end of the day, we're saving money by switching to full-time, right? Roughly 7,068, 600.
well, that's one of the long dissertations I gave before you got here, is there's a lot of little costs that I can't guarantee what they're gonna cost us, but I would feel safe telling you you're gonna save money. It's just, it could be anywhere between 2 and 10.
And then there's the added benefit by having a full-time person that could potentially add bonus, well, not bonus points, but it will add points to a part-time grant.
Correct.
the biggest thing, we'll get a more consistent, uniform service level.
That's one of the things that I think, I don't know if I hit on too well, but that is one of the benefits, is if something is slightly awry somewhere, is instead of having to pay for a contractor to come out, you do have that person to just tell them, hey, listen, we've got an issue, go address it.
Okay.
So,
I'm good. I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we, hire a full-time man.
Okay.
well, and that'll be in the form of a budget amendment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, I will go ahead and call it for a vote. Start with Cole.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, 6E, consider approval of resolution adopting a fund balance policy for the general fund.
Okay, so last month, if you'll turn to item 6E, we had talked about setting a limit for our fund balance. So you have a policy attached in your agenda. This will limit what we can dip into our fund balance to at a 75% mark. That number, that 75% number, is attached to your general fund revenues. However, it's attached before any appropriated fund balance revenues, grant revenues, loan revenues, bond revenues, or any other revenues which are not typical year-over-year revenues in your yearly budget. That number, we're normally somewhere between 900 and 950,000, so it's going to be 75% of that number. However, it will vary each year, especially this year based on COVID. And then we put in there a second line saying that we would like to aspire to maintain an available fund balance of 150% between now and June 30th, 2025. That's 5 years from now. That's roughly the time frame we set aside for these projects. Then if you want to go down to number 5, which is right below the fund balance levels, we do put in clauses that allow for us to exceed that amount given they meet one of the 5 criteria listed down below. So we would need a motion and a vote by council to adopt it.
I make a motion to approve the resolution, the policy.
All right, I'll call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
F, consider approval of policy for funding nonprofit or outside agencies.
Okay, so Thanksville, we talked about this last month. Council decided on a 1.5% number of whatever our general fund revenues are that year. Also before any grant revenues, bond revenues, grant monies, anything like that. So the 1.5% number for us is looked like about $14,000 to $15,000 each year. However, we're normally only donating what we give out to outside organizations, but it does cap us at about an additional 2. So if we got beyond that one, we would have to start limiting who we give funds to.
I'll make a motion to approve the policy for funding nonprofit outside agencies.
All right, call it for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Dan, yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we'll go back to 6A, consider agreement between the town and HHDA regarding the joint tower renovation project. And we met with HHDA and discussed this.
Yes, and the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem may want to chime in on this. However, we do have a rough draft agreement that we would like to enter into between the town and HHDA. If you've had a chance to read the language, essentially it outlines what we're expecting out of them, what they should expect out of us. And we both anticipate to pay for half the costs associated with the tower. In this particular agreement, the architect fees, which were the only fees we had, the only estimate we had at last month's meeting, are included in here. However, it does put in a line that says if final costs are more or less than the preliminary cost estimates, the number below will change accordingly. So essentially, whatever we do to the tower, we anticipate both organizations paying for half. But we would also need a motion and a vote. It does have in here that HHDA will raise half of the architect fees approved by the town council to be paid for by June 27th. We are going to talk about that as item 6B. So we may want to hold a vote on this item until after we discuss 6B because it would change that particular line in this agreement.
But we can go ahead and discuss this now in anticipation of that vote.
You can.
Okay. So yes, we did have a conversation with HHDA, and I feel at the end of the day, it was a very fruitful conversation. I think everybody walked out of it feeling better than before they entered. I don't think any punches were pulled, and I think everyone benefited from that. With that said, the conversation that, or the concerns that were expressed by HHDA are, number one, they're optimistic that they can raise their half of their money. However, they feel that with the potential passage of this, we're basically, ready as a council, ready to go ahead and approve a quote on an architect today. So essentially, we're telling HHDA, if you have your half of the money, we've got our half of the money, let's go ahead and start now. Which the concern by HHDA is that, and Wendell, correct me if I'm wrong, that they have not been able to have any fundraisers this year due to the COVID situation. Their fundraisers had to come in forms of the cruise-ins, and those have been canceled up to this point. With that said, they have money in the bank, but that money has been earmarked towards bills. I think it was strongly expressed how the town would wish they had some financial skin in the game. But I also understand being reasonable. So, we've given them a cost estimate of about $25,000 for their half of the park. Right? But they felt that basically writing a check for $4,500 to $5,000 this week is going to exhaust their funds and their operating expenses without any source of income coming in. So what I asked, and I'm throwing it out there to kind of see how y'all would do, and we can discuss the architect part of this. They still feel that they can raise their half of the money to $25,000 or whatever that cost will be. If we front load it and the town pay for 100% of the architect fees, and their half of that would be kind of put it on the back end. So the way I look at it is 6 of one, half dozen of another. So instead of being 50-50 every step of this part, the town put that, $4,500, $5,000 extra dollars up front, but they pay their money on the back end with all of the expectations listed in here to be followed. Monthly fundraising updates, the money to be, is expected to be raised by November. Logan, if I'm not mistaken, you put the date in there, it's November 15th. Is that right?
Yes.
For all of the funds to be raised.
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
It is, however, that's the point I did want to make under 3B. It does say that they will have, I just want to reiterate, I already said it, but again,
Yeah.
they'll have half of that architect fee, so that's something we'd have to look at. But yes, the rest of the funds by November.
So we could potentially modify that part of it, 3B in this agreement. But having the understanding that they're still gonna be responsible for raising half of the overall fees, including the architect, but it kind of come on the back instead of front end. Mostly because it's, we'd ask a bank account.
I agree with you, but, give them a chance because they had their fundraiser.
And that's the
That's
reason.
how they make
Yeah.
their money.
Absolutely. That's why I felt like that was kind of a reasonable outreach. I think the impression I had is I feel like each side is committed to making this project happen. I think each side is waiting for the other side to make the first financial step. And I think that's where the stalemate has been. And so I feel like if I'm okay with saying, let's go ahead and take that first step with the same understanding that the same amount of money is still spent on both sides. And then they also said, the question was asked, well, what happens if you can't raise your money? And they flat out said, if we can't raise the money, we've always been told that we were going to have the financial support from our alumni. And if we can't raise it, then that shows that, we'll have a little egg on our face that we can't raise it. We always thought we would and we can't. And so that's up to the council to do what at that point, which we could have that conversation. Do we proceed? Do we not? I don't want to cross that bridge unless we have to get there. But I think at least it's an opportunity to say, well, everybody at HHD has been told by their alumni they can raise the money going up to this point. This is some progress going. And if that means that we have to pay 100% of the architecture fees instead of 50% up front, but then they pay it on the back end, I think that is a reasonable compromise to make progress on this situation.
I got a problem with that.
But the only compromise is, that I understand is, we won't start the construction part and incur all that expense until they.
Right, and that was the part that we clarified because they wanted to understand why November as the fundraising deadline. And the reason to remind everybody and those watching is because the whole point of getting the beautification of the tower done ahead of the Part F grant is to make our application look better. It's also to show that we are trying to make improvements. And by raising the money by November, just because if we have the money by November, of whoever is going to be doing the work to fit it in their schedule at that time. We may be a high priority, we may be a very low priority. They may not be able to start it until March. The whole point is to give enough time for the contractor to fit it in their schedule, get the work complete by the April 1st preliminary deadline that we would like to submit the Part F grant for feedback to know if we're going to be competitive for the official submission on May the 1st. So that's why we need to have that several month window, is to ensure that the work is done. And especially with it being done during the winter, weather on an outside project can always be a factor. We all know this. So there's a lot of variables that go into it. So that's why we set the November date. And we said that previously in a regular council meeting. So I still feel like it's a reasonable first step. I think it's a reasonable compromise. Yes, there's the chance, the question has been posed, what if they don't raise the money?
Right. Where are we at?
And that is very reasonable. But at least what satisfied my concern on that is that they've already thought of that and acknowledged that if we don't raise it, we know the potential's there. However, I feel they're optimistic. I also think it's on the board and the town's position to aid them in whatever way that we can to help them raise the money. Because at the end of the day, money not being raised, the project not being done, bickering back and forth, that doesn't serve anybody well at all. And I think, without going into all of what was discussed, I think at the end of the day, everybody is ready for progress. And this is an opportunity for progress to happen. And if that means we got to spend $5,000 or so on the front end to do so, I think it's worth the gamble.
I think you're right about that. We'll both be working together instead of butting heads and stuff. I think that's gonna be a plus.
And I think that's what we all wanted all.
And if they don't raise the money before November, so are they still paying for half of the architectural fees in November? How does that work? What does that work like?
Well, and that's where the agreement comes into place, that we want to sign up for, that they would be responsible for half of that. And provided they don't, we would have some type of avenue to go back and get that money.
Okay, good, all right. Just looking at it from the business side of things.
Oh, of course.
Someone want to make a motion?
I think we need to discuss the architecture part and then come back to the table and then vote on it.
Yes, so the architect quotes, if you'll turn to 6B, we had 3 quotes submitted by Iker Architecture, one by CBSA of Hickory, and then one from Talon Smith Architecture. The lowest bid was Iker Architecture at $9,500 without it.
I make the motion to approve the 95. Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Jerry, yes.
Eric, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right, thank you. All right. Now we go back to A.
Yes. Yeah, now we would go back to 6A. What we would want to look at is 3B. As that part says, the HHDA shall raise 1/2 of the architect fee approved by the town council and be paid to the town by July 27th, 2020. The town should pay for half the architect fee by July 27th, 2020. We would want to amend that to say that we anticipate HHDA pay for that portion by November 15th. However, the town funds to pay for the architect now
So HHD will reimburse the town hall before that day.
by November 15th. Yeah, before
The
the
amount of $4,250.
40,
$49.90. That's half of that, correct?
95, 97.50. Is that right?
47.
What's it at?
Yes, 47.
Math.
Yes. Evidently.
Revision with the amended agreement.
All right.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Jerry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
Okay, thank you. How's the live feed going? I got somebody texting saying they didn't get it. They're not getting it. So.
Was it Jody? Because I've already taken care of Jody.
Okay, you're Karen.
Karen, it's going. I'm watching it on my phone.
Okay, all right, good. Okay. I just want to make sure. All right. 7, new business. 7A, consider approval of fiscal year 2021 budget amendment capital improvement project.
If you'll turn to 7A, this budget amendment is simply to pay for the capital improvements project for the town hall here, well, the old town hall, community center, gym, auditorium work. What happened was we now is just a budget amendment for $64,626 on being spent.
I make the motion to approve budget amendment number 1.
Okay.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Jerry, yes.
And Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right, 7B, consider approval of fiscal year 2021 budget amendment project Northwest Marvis Industries LLC and project Husky Synergy Labs.
Okay, these are 2 building reuse grants that were provided through the state. And what it is, the county and the town of Hildebrand are doing a 5% match for splitting it. Our portion for the first one for NW, Project NW, which is and the second one was another building reuse grant for Project Husky, 22nd, 2019, in the amount of $12,500. And they've just now started billing us for these. That's why we're doing it now. So it's been approved for a while. It's just now they're getting around to billing us for our share.
Okay.
Rick, can you repeat those 2 numbers again? Because I think on this sheet it has something different.
Okay, the total amount was $19,812.50, which consists of $7,812.50 for Project NW and $12,500 for Project Husky.
And that doesn't add up.
Okay, where did I?
It's $12,000, can't be
Oh,
$12,000.
$12,000? Okay, that may be a typo. Let me hold on just a second.
What we've got on our sheet says 12,000.
$12,500 is in the resolution, so we can adjust the amount.
You have to change your budget then. That's not gonna show.
Yes, we can approve the budget with the amended amount.
So $20,312.50.
Correct.
I will make a motion to approve budget amendment number 2, the amended budget amendment number 2, the amount of $20,312.50.
All right, call it for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Jerry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right, thank you. Consider approval of fiscal year 2021 budget amendment COVID funding relief.
Okay, we were fortunate in that the funds that were distributed to the county from the state, we initially were awarded $19,100 from the county. However, there's been language that come from the General Assembly that said they have to dedicate at least 25% of the funds the county got to then turn around and give those funds to municipalities. So our amount has went up from $19,100 in COVID funds to $55,000. Let's see. To $55,355. So what we're doing here is we have a budget amendment to receive revenue and expend the additional $36,255 of COVID funds. What I'll do is before we actually spend these, we'll have to amend the plan, send that to the county, get the county's approval, and then what I'll do before we even spend funds after that point is bring it back to council and show you the plan to make sure everything we're spending on is approved by you.
Because it is restricted usage.
Yeah, and there are like 4 or 5 different categories it can be spent on, but for our purposes, because we don't have law enforcement, EMS, there's really only 2 categories. So we're gonna have to get creative to make sure we can make use of all 55. But I think we can do that. So. And the other idea is if we don't spend it, we have to give it back to the county.
It's used or lose it.
It's use it or lose it.
Do we have a time frame on which we have to use it by?
December
Okay.
of this year.
I'll make a motion to approve budget amendment number 3.
All right, vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Jerry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
Okay, 7D, consider cancellation of rental events and town facilities for August 2020.
I don't have anything booked other than the rock and roll. You know, they're always wanting to get in. But I don't recommend it at this point.
With the governor's orders, I don't see where we can.
Right.
Technically.
Yeah, and we won't know anything until August 4th or 14th. When he makes, I think he makes his next announcement, and then we won't even know until that day what the plan is. We don't even know the options.
All right,
Staff recommends that we close facilities in August.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to cancel rental events.
You have a motion.
okay, that's a motion, vote.
Cole, no.
Mike, yes. Jerry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
Okay, thank you. 7E, consider revision of regular meeting schedule for August 24th meeting.
So I'm assuming we want to continue in here with streaming YouTube, but do we want to change the time to maybe 7:15 for Cole? Would that help?
Yeah, that'd be great.
The other idea is would we like to change it permanently to 7:15? I mean, unless we know anything that would change.
There's not gonna be any change to my work schedule for the remainder of my term, so I would appreciate that, but that's up to y'all to decide.
You said change it to 7:15.
Yes.
I'll make that motion, change to 7:15. That helps me.
Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. All right, there's a motion. Call it for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right, thank you. 7F, June facilities report, that's in your packet. I don't guess there's anything needs to be said there. 7G, June tax report.
Actually, hang on one second. I want to
Oh,
go back
okay.
to something on the facilities report. So under miscellaneous, it has reset electric town sign at CVS. So that, I'm assuming that's our town sign, right? The digital one. So what is going on, Gary, you can comment on this with the whole lighting situation at that intersection CVS is at. It's extremely dark, really dangerous.
CVS tells us that it's on a timer. I disagree with that. I spoke with the management up there because it's dark, you know, at all hours of the night. And I think it needs to be lit up.
Everything is controlled from Rhode Island. But is there anything that we can do as a council or town administration to encourage the
CVS.
safety of our citizens at the street corner?
And I have asked CVS the same thing, if we could get lights. And they said it's like pulling teeth, trying to get something done.
So I guess two questions here. Number one, can we do anything from an ordinance standpoint with lighting that is punishable by fines? Because no company's gonna do anything until you start charging them per day. Number two, can we as a town do anything as far as adding streetlights at that corner if such an organization doesn't care about the citizens in which they serve?
I believe we can add the light if
We put in lights before in other places.
it is, I do believe we do have a monthly cost, is that right?
Well,
Yeah. It would, the lights have a fixed amount a month, like $16 a month ongoing. So you just add that monthly fee for each light that you put in that vicinity.
Can we look into what the best option would be at that point? Because something has to be done. I know there's, Gary can speak on it, but there's been a lot of deadly accidents at that corner.
there has, when that you stretch between 78 and 10th Street, before you get to the railroad crossings, several deaths up there. That and I-40 access is our two big streets that we need lights on.
Well,
That's
I'll put this way to put, $16 a month, why don't we just go ahead and put the lights up till we get it done?
well, that assumes that we have a pole in the area that we could put, we had to install a pole, of course, that'd be more cost to it, but yeah,
Can we please look into that?
yeah.
7G, June tax report. That's in your packet.
I did want to add, in addition to the monthly report, we also have our settlements. I've done mine, that's the first one there, and then Danny Eisenhower presented the 2019 settlement. So we do need a motion and votes for that, and after that, there is the order for the tax collector to collect property taxes. For me, it's 2017 and older, and for Danny, it would be for 2020. So I need two motions.
It'd be from 2018 up. You want to collect taxes too.
That's not what he put, but I agree.
Work in the building, collect the town, beginning with 2018.
Yes.
All right. Got the motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes. Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right, 7H, June deputy report, that's in your packet.
If you don't have any problem, cycling that out, but we're not sure if that's good.
All right, 7I, committee reports. Oh, no, well, who's got the committee report? Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, TCC, Logan.
Yes, so the scoring for the Wilson Road widening project, which is 100% DOT, that their sidewalk, that was in the last, spot. The, project for North Center Street, the sidewalk project has been put in for scoring as well. The lap project was scored and approved for its first phase. The only one that was missing from that report, and I've not gotten comment back, we initially asked for DOT to look at a possible roundabout. I know there's some people who are offended of that, there's some who are not, at the intersection of Main Avenue and South Center Street. However, that was missing from the latest, document put out by the Western Piedmont Council of Government. So we'll need to look into that moving forward for TCC.
And to continue adding to that, that's the three projects he's talking about is totaled roughly $4 million worth of street improvement and sidewalk improvements or additions in the town. I think that's a significant figure to note. With that said, the last project he's talking about is the Main Avenue East sidewalk, which is $500,000. We were approved for that on an 80-20% match. So we'll have to pay 20% of that, which is $109,000. Is that right, Logan? 104,000 that we have to pay. So that's our first grant that we got with that. The sidewalk and Wilson Road project alone is roughly $2.5 million. It's quite a significant project, but that's at 100%. And you know that and the North Center Street are submitted for prioritization. Going back to the Main Avenue East, what I think is important to note, even though we're approved, the pre-engineering and all the work prior to construction is slated for 2022. That has been delayed because of the COVID stuff and the budget problems that DOT's having with construction to start 2023. So we got some work we have to do ahead of time with public comments and things like that. But with all that said, the work would start in 2023, so that sidewalk will be coming.
Okay. Western Piedmont COG Policy Board Delegate.
That is tomorrow.
Okay. Burke Economic Development.
Just approval of agenda. I know several of you talked about this. I'll try to get this emailed out to everybody, but it just really did budget update and still talking about housing and the demand that we need for housing in Burke County is huge. So that's about the only thing they're still talking about. So that's all the updates I got.
All right, thank you. Recreation.
Nothing to report.
Water Resource. Nothing. Vedic.
Well, we had a meeting last Thursday and been able to help quite a few small businesses, a lot more than what have been in the past. And there's quite a bit of grant money coming through to help more.
And the library, we did not have a meeting this month. So is there any other business?
Wanted to ask, do we need to do anything to officially determine whether HHCA is allowed to do their cruising in August?
So I mean, here's the thing, we've already set aside money in the budget. We've canceled all rentals, but we have not canceled any type of renting of the property. So I mean, theoretically, they could go about doing it. There's nothing that says they can't at this point. However, Rex did mention they need about 30 days notice to start one. They're not gonna get but 10. So I don't foresee them having one in August. However, I wouldn't cancel it at this point unless council feels the need to cancel it.
And is that depending on the governor, what he says?
Now, in that meeting, did they not say they already had everything, the band, the fireworks, all that?
They didn't have the bands booked. The fireworks, he said, they have to pay up front So I'm not sure how many days up front they have to pay it.
Well, my concern is if we're gonna, pay for the fireworks and all that stuff, we wanna make sure we have time to promote it. So, the citizens can come out and enjoy it. I just wanna make sure that, if they're willing to proceed and the council doesn't have any reason not to, that we can go forward and make sure it's promoted.
There's no obstacles other than whatever the governor might say at this point from the town's point of view.
That's my point too. If they're able to do it, they won't do it. I think something needs to happen.
Put it right,
People
put it right.
something positive to look forward to.
Do we need to check with Rex to make sure everything's good to go for whatever the pre-planned date is? Since you said it's only like 10 days away or whatever?
Yeah, it's like 10 days, I believe it's August 24th, I could be,
Fourth Saturday, whatever that date is.
yeah, so, yes, absolutely, we need to make sure, that they're good to go. But I mean, at this point until August 14th, we won't even know what the restrictions are.
And I think based upon our prior conversation with everything else with HSDA, if we've ironed out some issues, let's keep moving forward in a positive way. If this is the time, I'm like Gary, let's go for it. I mean,
I think people in town ready to step out
People
there,
will be
so
here.
I think it'll-
people will be here, they'll show up. So.
We need to expect about fireworks too.
Yeah.
I will say that.
No, at this point, there's nothing to approve. It's already in the budget for us to reimburse them for that. But I did want to add an item, under other business. So we did have a pretty bad storm last week. It has knocked down, depending on who you ask, between 8 and 13 trees in the park. That's probably officially closer to 8. But we will need a budget amendment to perform the work, the cleanup work. We have to, council's willing to at least approve the 2750. We know we've got to cover tonight. We did that
It's
before.
got to be done, right?
Yeah, it has to. And currently, we've asked the two that have already submitted bids. Both of them are able to get the work done by August 3rd. So we've went ahead and temporarily closed the park until August 3rd.
I'll make a motion to.
Is that amount not underneath your limit? I mean, can you not have the discretion to do that?
The problem is we would have to pull it from appropriated fund balance.
I'll make the motion to get
Are
them
you gonna say something?
for 2750 to get it took care of.
I've had reports from comprehensive tobacco pretty good. I personally have not seen you, but I've had reports.
Many trees that we've had knocked down at that park, trees must grow awful fast out there. It's hard to believe we have this many trees drop. I mean, goodness.
Tell me what? Is that what's going on?
Dead wood.
A lot of dead trees, stuff up in there.
It's gotta get done, so.
I made the motion, go ahead and prove it.
So let's go ahead and vote.
Oh, yes.
Mike, yes. Jerry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right, thank you. Any other business?
One thing,
I think we need to look at something though, since how we voted for the full-time, maintenance man. At some point, the council can set up a community work day to see how many people you can find out will be involved and go up there and clean the park up real good before our maintenance man actually starts. Volunteer day?
We can look at legally how that's possible and report back in August.
I mean, I said, I'd be glad to go.
also dovetailing off something Terry said, if we as a town know that there's a lot of dead wood up there and so forth, and we let children, people go up there, you need to make sure that you eliminate that as a possibility of somebody getting hurt, whether they have a forester or somebody else go up there and say, this needs, rather than wait till it falls, some kid gets hit or something like that. You're up there a lot.
I'm up there all the time.
So you know, so
That's a habitat for snakes too, so. So that's all they do.
So, I mean, that's something, I don't know who you get to do something like that, but we want to get somebody to cruise it and see what needs to be done to improve the environment for the safety of our citizens, especially the children.
Could the guy doing the tree removal look at that while he's up there, or the guy's gonna help clean up when he have that expertise?
We can ask.
I mean, maybe something to ask while he's there, just kind of look around and
Cruise it and look.
mark them on.
Or maybe check if the Forest Service once a year can just do an annual pass through whenever it's convenient for them, but like once a year.
Yeah, I'll look into it, ask everyone. I'm also having, I don't think Paul's here yet, but we're also having landscapers come out to look at that bank for possible options of how to address it. I can ask them if that's something they know anything about, but we'll find someone who can look at it when it's done.
One other thing, you heard anything else about the debris pickup?
No, well, for the rest of the council, so Mike had asked about possible debris pickup. I did call Longview, they only have 8 maintenance people, and I think 4 at a time that can go out. They don't have anybody that they can spare. I left a message with both Hickory and Bounties, but neither of them have called me back yet. I was told by the people at the city of Hickory I'd get a call today, but so I'll follow back up with him tomorrow.
Okay.
And let you know.
Any announcements? Okay, any adjournment?
Good job.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
We knew we could count on you, Ben.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Jerry, yes.
Derek, yes.
And yes.
All right, thank y'all
Say,
guys.
think about it.
1 hour.
59 minutes, let me think of
It was just being a-
Great job, man. Great job.